Time to raise some hell. Here are 19 reasons to watch Pet Sematary 2. Hi everyone, I'm Dave Musson at Dave Musson on Instagram, and this is a place where I talk to you about all things Stephen King. And this is one of my videos where I'm continuing my walk through the movies, the adaptations of Stephen King's works. And this time we're covering Pet Sematary 2, which of course, being a sequel, is slightly different, but I'll come to that in a moment. First, just a couple of teeny tiny little plugs. So when it comes to plugs, everything you need to know is in the description. You'll find links to my Stephen King quiz book, my fiction that I've published, my newsletter, and the Constant Writers podcast, as well as my Letterboxd profile. If you want to check out any of those, that would be hugely appreciated. But more than anything, I'm really glad you're here. So let's get back to Ludlow and Pet Sematary 2. So as you know by now, because I've said it a lot, we're covering Pet Sematary 2 from 1992. It's Mary Lambert's sequel to her own original film from 1989. Now, I'm not planning to do all of the sequels, particularly as we're getting into the 90s now, and we're getting into Children of the Corn and Children of the Corn 482, all of that kind of shit. Nah, my plan is not to cover the sequels, but it's spooky season. We've just had Pet Sematary Bloodlines, and frankly, Pet Sematary 2 is fucking great. So I'm making an exception here, alright? We're covering the sequels here. What I will do in a few months down the line is probably rank all of the sequels together at some point. So we will cover them in a way, but not getting the full 19 Reasons treatment. Part, of course, from Pet Sematary 2. Did I tell you we're doing Pet Sematary 2? Anyway, at the time of recording, this one is available to stream on Paramount Plus here in the UK and on Max in the US. I think it's just Max now, right? Or you can buy it, rent it in loads of places, including here on YouTube. What I'm going to do, I'm going to give you 19 reasons to watch this. And if you're thinking, I haven't seen this yet, are there going to be spoilers? Well, there might be spoilers, but I will cluster them all at the end of the list and put them behind a spoiler alert so you know where to bail. And I'll also mark everything in the description. So if you want to skip the spoilery reasons and jump to the outro when you get to the point when you're ready to bail, that's cool as well. Okay, let's get on with it. Is dead better? Let's find out. Here are 19 reasons to watch Pet Sematary 2. So my main reason for you to watch this is one that I've used before and used quite a lot recently actually. It's a lot of fun. So the original Pet Sematary was obviously a very powerful meditation on grief and loss. This one leans into the other side of that story, the zombies. And yeah, it gets crazy at times, but what town wouldn't be crazy a couple of years after the incident of the original film? This one is, well, it's fun, like I said. You're never going to look away from this one. It's bombastic, it's pulpy, it's silly, and it's just a hoot. Another thing worth mentioning here, especially given that it wasn't filmed in Maine and it's not based on a King story, is that Mary Lambert has managed to build a very Stephen King vibe to this. The town is full of horrible little shits, and you definitely don't want to spend too much time in that town. It's full of bad blood, and yeah, you desperately want to leave, and yet you can't look away. Yeah, the vibes here are spot on.
Now you want some advice, my friend? You get in your car and you get the hell out of that town!
I also really like how gnarly the actual Pet Sematary looks in Pet Sematary 2. It feels like the events of the first film have not only aged the town and sent it crazy, but aged the cemetery as well. It looks less well kept. It looks more dangerous, less peaceful, and I really like it. So originally Mary Lambert wanted to make Ellie Creed the focus of this movie. She wanted to show what had happened to her after her family had all, spoiler alert, got killed in the first film. But Paramount said no, because they didn't think that people would be interested in a film with a young female lead. So instead, we get a new family, we get men at the front of it, and we get a new story. But we do get to find out kind of what happened to Ellie Creed as her story is told around a campfire in the Pet Sematary. And let's just say, it wasn't a happy ending for Ellie either.
Then one night, she freaks out, hacks up the grandparents with an axe. Police found her licking the brains off the blade. Threw her in the psycho ward. All she could say were 2 words. Pet Sematary.
So let's talk cast, and let's talk about the fact that this is the film that Edward Furlong did next after the breakout moment of Terminator 2. I mean, gotta love a left field turn like that. It's kind of Daniel Radcliffe-esque in terms of pushing against what he'd become famous for. And Furlong is really good in this. My only gripe with his character is that his character's called Jeff. I mean, apologies to any Jeffs watching, but look at it this way. You're the producers of this film. One of your lead characters is a teenage boy. You're thinking what to call him. And you call him Jeff. Jeff! Train. Train! I mean, I know it's rich from me being called Dave, but honestly, you've got the whole world of names. And you called him Jeff. So Jeff's dad, Chase, is played by Anthony Edwards, who, despite looking pretty old in this film, is actually only 15 years older than Edward Furlong, which means that Anthony Edwards in this film was 30. For context, I'm nearly 38. What is happening there? Now, for me, there are 2 cast members who really deserve all the plaudits. And the first one is Zowie the dog. He's fucking great, especially when he goes all red-eyed evil Zowie the dog. Like, give him an Oscar. Like, justice for dogs in Stephen King films who didn't get Oscars. We had Cooge, now we've got Zowie. Like, come on guys. This dog was superb. Second though, the real star, Clancy fucking Brown as the sadistic policeman Gus. A sick, twisted weirdo who loves his rabbits, being a bastard, and potatoes. He brings so much larger-than-life energy to this performance that he tips the film from being what could have been a shit sequel into something that feels like a cult classic that you definitely want to grab off the shelf or find online every Halloween and watch just for a bit of Friday night fun. So fun fact for you, that skeleton arm at the start that's grabbing Jeff's mum on the film set, that's the same skeleton arm, the actual same skeleton arm that was used in the It miniseries to grab Ben out the pond. So lastly, before spoilers, there is just a tremendous unhinged energy about this that carries this film on at a rate of knots. It's not scary per se, but it's violent, it's twisted, and just great. Okay, so after this point, I'm going to be sharing some of my favourite scenes, favourite moments, all of that kind of stuff. Potentially things that might ruin a first time watch if you want to experience these without me having prompted you. So what I'm saying is this is the spoiler alert. If you need to bail here, do bail or use the link in the description to jump to the outro. And I will see you again soon. But otherwise, stick around because I've got a few more reasons for you to watch Pet Sematary 2 coming right up. Oh, there's a cat outside stalking around. I wonder if he's a normal cat or a revived cat. Either way, he's a cat, so he can fuck off. Okay, no book to compare this to, obviously, so let's just jump in and celebrate some of the crazy scenes in this film. Now, I mentioned violence, and, well, that is the most appropriate word when it comes to Gus killing off Clyde with a motorbike wheel. Ooh. There's no room here for anyone or anything being sentimental either. We actually get Drew and his mum killed off and not revived. They're just killed off. They're just crushed by a truck full of potatoes, which is a vegetable we will come back to very shortly, in fact. There's no sentiment either in the scene of Gus killing all his little bunnies either. And we get some good gross out horror in this one, particularly with the zombies. My personal highlight being the vomit attack from the revived Clyde. Oh yeah, and we get just plain weird. Like, did I not yet mention the wolf head sex scene? Yeah. Okay, let's bring it back to potatoes, because when it comes to my favourite scene, Gus, revived, reanimated, zombified Gus, showing off his table manners, is definitely my favourite scene. It's genuinely more scary than any of the horror on display in this film. As for my favourite line, it's Gus again, this time when he's wielding a drill.
No brain, no pain. Think about it.
So there are quite a few links to other King things in this one, aside from it obviously being the sequel to the 1989 version and keeping the same director from that version. So producer Ralph S. Singleton also made Graveyard Shift a few years before this, while Clancy Brown would go on to be in Shawshank Redemption and Robert Easton would appear in Needful Things. Obviously Edward Furlong was in Terminator 2, who I mentioned earlier. Now stick with me here. His mum in Terminator 2 is Linda Hamilton, who was in Children of the Corn. And lastly, of course, we see people go past the old Creed place, which is from the first film and the original story. So lastly, let's give praise and thanks to the cheesy roll call of death at the end of this movie, where we see pictures of all the people who died. Now, if you only caught these couple of minutes of this film, you would assume what had preceded it was some kind of really painfully cringy Hallmark shit, not some zombified absolute bloodbath gorefest that we actually get. But hey, that's because dead is better.
Dead is better!
Okay, there we go, 19 reasons for you to watch Pet Sematary 2. As I said at the start, I'm not doing deep dives on all of the sequels, but this one felt special enough to warrant it, and we're kind of at the right time of year for Pet Sematary anyway, so let me know what you think of this one. I think it's great, but tell me what you think. Are you a fan of Pet Sematary 2? Are you a fan of Clancy Brown, Edward Furlong, Zowie the dog, all of that kind of stuff? Hit me up in the comments. You can also find in the description links to my fiction, my Stephen King quiz book, the Constant Writers podcast, my Letterboxd profile, my newsletter. Check any of those out if you like, or come and say hi on Instagram where I'm at Dave Musson. Next up, we are diving into a split personality and, well, old Hoss, I can tell you it's going to be quite a ride.